Coming to you live from the wine cave, underneath Mark Levin's bunker, is the newest episode of the Groupthink Podcast. Joining us this week is a senior editor from the DailyWire, the second member of the DailyWire to join us on the show. She's leading up the Catholic Yenta project, and she has a whole bunch of other things that I'm sure we'll discuss over the course of the next, however long we're going to talk. She is Emily Zanotti. How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Pretty good. I'm starting off my wine cave night with the last bit of my cupcake red velvet, like the good liberal I am. So, what do you got going on that end?
I've got some, I guess, a grocery store white wine. Whatever I used to cook tonight is now what I'm drinking. So.
I have been needing to stock up on cheap stuff at Aldi because I am about to move and I do not want to tap into my nice wine bottles going into the next couple weeks. So, I mean, although I have been meaning to pick up a bottle of Federalist ever since, what's her name from, I forget what, I think from the Federalist recommended it. So.
It's actually pretty good. I do like their red wine. You can get it at Trader Joe's. It's a little bit cheaper, but it is pretty good. That's pretty good.
All right, there you go. So how are things on whatever side of Chicago you're on?
I'm on the north side? North side. I've had a little bit of wine. Let's see. I'm on the north side, and as far as I am concerned, it's pretty good. No one's been robbed in my general vicinity, and we still have a Taco Bell, so I'm pretty good with that.
Well, no one gets robbed on the north side of Chicago. They just get scalped by hipsters. That's
right. Or pushed down and forced to do something ironically.
Well, there you go. I mean, I can't imagine living on the north side of Chicago, having gone to school in downtown. So I am delightfully safe out in the suburbs for the meantime, not having to deal with that unless I want to go to the Music Box every other month. So. Oh
yeah, see, that's not too bad. Or Wrigley Field, not too far from where I am. So.
Well, there you go.
I try to stay away from it during the season, but right now it's pretty nice.
You're telling me you don't like to deal with 30,000 people at once?
No, it's just so weird. So weird.
Yeah, I remember I did a film shoot once in Chicago, and I tried to drive home, and I didn't realize that it was the night of the Cubs game.
Oh my gosh.
So it took me 3 hours to get back to Aurora. So.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah, do not.
I'm always, sad because in my general vicinity, I can never get an Uber. For the whole summer. Just forget about it, because it's surge pricing in my... just to go to, the grocery store.
Well, there you go. So, I'm excited to finally have you on the show. I've been wanting to talk to you for a while, because you seem to be one of the few millennials I've met who seems to be functional. So I
thank you.
I don't know who the compliment in that is for, but
I think it's a compliment, but I'm gonna take it.
I mean, up until I'm gonna be moving in about a month from now, but I'm still on living with my dad status because I'm a millennial, as is our want in life. So, I did want to talk a little about your experience, kind of growing into your position in life. I mean, because obviously now you're a very famous Twitter mom. You have a pretty you have a pretty cool job. You seem to have figured out something that other people haven't, and now you're helping other people figure it out. So, where are you coming from in terms of how you got to where you are?
It has been a really strange trip. So I started in forensic science when I was going to college. I was a total screw up in high school, so I didn't have any idea what I wanted to do. So I was like, I'll be a cop, which is really a great idea for someone who's 5'2" and was 95 pounds at the time.
Could have been worse. You could have decided to be a graphic artist. But... I say that with 5 graphic artist friends, but
right, at least there were career prospects for a cop. But so I went to forensic science, and eventually my teachers were like, you're not going to succeed in the world of being a cop, so you should probably go to law school. So that's what I ended up doing. I went to law school. After law school, I started doing constitutional litigation, which was boring as heck. And I got into the politics side of it and started working on campaigns. I worked my way up to the presidential level in 2012, and then I retired to become a political journalist. And 2 years ago, Ben Shapiro found me toiling in the underbelly of the Wall Street Journal and asked me to come and work at the DailyWire, and that's what I've been doing for the last couple years. And recently, Twitter decided that I should be a matchmaker, so that's my new job in life. So I wish that I could say that. I wish that I could say that there was like any specific pattern of going places, but it's all been kind of an accident, stumbling into the next best thing. So right now, I think I have a pretty cool job and a pretty cool family and a pretty cool house. So I would say I'm on the successful end of the millennial spectrum, I guess.
I'll have to dig up that great P.J. O'Rourke quote where he says, I have gone the entire length of my adult life going through multiple ideologies and careers, and I don't believe a single amount of cognitive thought was involved at any point in it.
I feel like that describes my whole career perfectly. Like, I did not choose to do any of this, but it's all sort of come at the right time, which is kind of shocking to me. But
well, there you go. I mean, luck is certainly a factor in it. I was kind of curious how you wound up at the Daily Wire, because as far as I can tell, that's kind of a hard gig to get. I mean, yeah. I've been beating at the door of the Daily Wire, as some of my articles have suggested recently. I mean,
bubbled up through.
Yeah, I mean, I spent almost a year at Legal Insurrection. Now, of late, I've been doing a lot of work with I've been doing intermittent work with Christian Toto and Rebler.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So, I mean, my goal eventually would be, like, to just kind of find, like, a decent freelance gig on the side, because I like my current day job, but
yeah.
I mean, it's proving to be exceptionally difficult to find freelance gigs, because it seems like the only websites that actually pay are PJ Media and The Federalist, and neither of them want to talk to me. So,
no.
I mean, it's pretty dang hard.
Yeah, it's hard.
It's hard to get, like, a start unless you obviously, like, you have, like, a law degree and you have, like, some sort of, like, academic backing, because unless you're, like, David French or something like that, and you have that kind of background where you can just, like, rely on that job and then have some sort of expertise to bring into it.
Yeah.
Then obviously you can break into the conservative sphere pretty easily, and I'm just sitting over here like, well, I'm, like, the 10th most important film critic on the right, so...
Hey, you know what? That's pretty good, actually.
Well, that's honestly not that. That's me being immodest. I'm probably like the 50th, but.
Oh, you're probably in the top 10 at least, but.
Oh, not even close.
So I always chalk my success at Daily Wire up to actually being really, really bored in law school. So I was really bored in law school, so I started this blog, and it initially had like 30 readers, and that was a big day. Like, one day someone linked to me and I had like 300 people on my site, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And so I stuck with it for no real reason at all. I just kind of enjoyed doing it, and eventually that translated into work for the American Spectator, which at the time was one of the few places that pay. I have no idea if they do that now, but it translated into work for them, and then I went to work at Heat Street, which was a sort of short-lived, millennial-focused news site. A lot of tech reporting, a lot of video game reporting. It was like right in my wheelhouse. I love to report about geek stuff, comic books, comic book conventions, cosplay. I got the opportunity to write about a lot of that stuff, and I got on Ben Shapiro's radar, and when they needed a writer at the Daily Wire, they were like, can you come over and sort of give us at the time it was the Gamergate, actually, is what was going on, and they asked me if I would give them the basic idea of what Gamergate was about, and so I did, and I got on their radar that way. And so when I needed a job when Heat Street folded, they were like, come over here, it's fine.
I mean, that's kind of like going like, oh, my first choice Yale is too boring, I'm gonna go with my second choice at Northwestern. But
yeah, right.
Yeah, so it's like you had a career, You just got bored with it, but
I got bored with it, so I ended up doing this. But it's been pretty fabulous. I have a great job, and still get to do all the awesome stuff that I want to do, and I still get time to work on. I still do cosplay. Well, I don't. My kids do now, so I still get time to like work on Baby Yoda costumes at home.
I mean, unfortunately, I happen to fall into the sad majority of millennials who'd rather become YouTubers than astronauts. So I did not have the best start off in terms of my ability to establish myself on the internet. So at the moment, I'm just developing my irreverent and ironically nihilist brand on YouTube, on Twitter, just to kind of figure out what the heck I can do.
There you go. Just take that direction. Just go for all it's worth.
Yeah, and it also helps that I've been networking like friggin' crazy for the past year and a half, so. I got friggin' Toto on speed dial.
There you go. He's a good friend to have. He's definitely a good friend to have. I've always loved his pieces, and I occasionally get the chance to edit him at the DailyWire, and that's always great.
Hey, audience, can you tell I'm drinking wine right now? No. I mean, I've had two pieces published there as of the time we're recording this. I did a piece on Little Women that went up, and I did a piece on... what was the other one I did? Shoot, I'm gonna have to look it up, but I did 2 pieces for him. You can just look up my name, and it'll just pop up on the site, But yeah, a lot of those were pieces I was submitting elsewhere, and I was like, went to Christian, and I was like, Christian, no one else wants these. Would you take them? And he's like, sure.
That's awesome. That's fabulous.
Well, I remember, like, around 2017, I was trying to figure out what the heck I could do, because I didn't have anywhere to talk to, and then that was right before I got picked up by Geeks Under Grace, who are the most wonderful editors in the world, because they let me do whatever the heck I want. So,
and that's the best, yeah.
Yeah, so they brought me on around 2017, and right around the time I reached out to Christian, I was like, hey, do you have any advice? And he let me call him, like, on the phone, and he's like, here's my cell phone, give me a call one day, and we'll kind of just give you the laydown of the land. And he just kind of just talked me through it, and he's like, this is what it's like, this is what your obstacles are, and he's like, okay, cool. And then he helped me get a gig at Legal Insurrection, and it's just been moving from there, so.
Yeah, you know what, that's the right trajectory. I think you want to have that foot in the door in places like that, where you get your name out and you get your Google rankings up, and then it sort of moves on from there. Like, when I started in writing, and I started in just performing and writing outside of politics, a lot of people were telling me, it takes about 10 years for you to really establish yourself and make yourself into a commodity. And that's probably about what it took. I don't consider myself super famous right now, but I think it takes that like 5 to 10 years of really just making sure that you take every opportunity that you have, and that's when you start to see those results. Like, it sucks working for those 5 to 10 years or whatever, toiling in sort of a low-paid area. But if you have the opportunity to pursue this while you have a day job, it's awesome.
Toiling in the internship mines, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I started writing in 2013, so the timing is probably is basically working out. I mean, I think in December I got published by 3 separate websites that I hadn't been published at before. So it's if there's any exponential increase to this, things could change quickly. But enough about me. I host this podcast, and it's already boring enough as it is. So so you think that, what do you think kind of got you in the right place then? If a lot of life kind of just happened to you, like it seems like a lot of people in our generation, the kind of things that happen, like even just the basic stuff, like having a house and a family, doesn't come naturally to a lot of people our age.
Yeah, it's kind of a strange thing, because I had never planned on having any of these things, and maybe that's the key to it. It's like don't ever decide to have a house or have kids or any of those things, and maybe you'll stumble into those, which is really, really terrible advice. But I think, I have to credit God to some extent, because I am really terrible at having a plan.
Sure.
And you know, the universe has to have a plan and push me in the right direction. And I think that that's happened quite a bit. He's like a guardian angel, like picking somebody up out of the gutter and just like shoving them in the right direction is usually what's happening in my life. But in terms of having a house and things like that, we just started at a different expectation level, I think, is part of it. When it comes to millennials, I feel like a lot of people that I talk to want everything the way that their parents had it when they left their parents' house. And like when I moved out from my parents' house, they had a beautiful, 2-story home, and they were able to purchase everything they wanted. And I just realized at some point that I had to start somewhere. And so when we decided to actually buy a house, we bought the worst house on the block. We tanked the property values because, oopsies. We bought a house with pink walls and teal carpet and a 1970s kitchen that was like due to set fire at any second.
Oh my gosh.
we were like, all right, we can do it. We can take this house and settle for something really crappy and make it into something that we really liked. And over the years, we've lived here about 6 years. We've changed everything. Literal blood, sweat, and tears has gone into this house. If you've ever listened to the Lady Brains podcast, which is I'm one of 6 female hosts, we've gone through a lot of the DIY projects that I've done. I lived without a bathroom for 4 weeks. It was really bad. I was showering at my in-laws. We took our kitchen all the way down. We took everything out of our kitchen, right down to the studs, right down to the framing of the house. And we're still not finished. I have 2 kids now, so we can't do dangerous things as easily as we used to be able to. But yeah, we just settled for sort of the worst thing at the top of what we could afford instead of saying, this is my dream idea of what I want my house to look like, and I will only move into that house. And to me, that seems kind of a little bit anti-millennial. Like, I run into a lot of people who are like, I'm going to have this dream life. I want to be an Instagram influencer. Some of us live in a house where we have to like actually take the toilet out with our bare hands sometimes. In terms of kids, we just sort of did that. I think if you wait until you're ready for a family, and a lot of people feel like this pull to say, well, I'm going to wait until I can afford children. I'm going to wait until I'm ready for kids. I'm going to wait until my life is together. There's something that you just realize your life is never going to be together. So you just have children. And then you realize that it's just basically like taking care of 2 drunk roommates all the time. And it's actually pretty easy. Like, you're like, oh, surprisingly, I could do this without having to be super, super together, super with it. Like, it really is. It's basically like taking care of 2 really drunk, really unable to handle things for themselves individuals 24 hours a day.
I guess the lesson I'm taking home from this is just to reframe your expectations more
Yeah.
than anything else.
Yeah, like, don't think that like you have to be super mature to have children. Like, you have plenty of time. You just need to stay like a day ahead of them. Really.
Oh no, I mean, I hate to do the millennial thing where I take life advice from Rick and Morty, but parents are just kids having kids. So.
Yep.
See, I'm no better, but
The hangovers are a lot worse, I think. Like, don't get drunk and get hungover, because then like somebody will eventually get you up at 6 o'clock in the morning. So you have to be a little more careful about that. But otherwise, like, it really is just children having children.
oh my gosh, the worst thing about freaking growing up is that now food that I love makes me feel like I'm going to die. Like, I'll get a Burger King craving every once in a while, or I'll be like, I want to drink a Mountain Dew. And then 10 minutes later, I'm like, why do I feel like death all of a sudden? Why do I feel like I need to, like, pass half of my body out of my body right now in order to not die? And then I go, like, eat a salad, and I'm like, oh, Well, there you go. Food is
It's like
functional, not fun.
functional. And then you hit 35 and I feel like my back just started hurting. Like it wasn't like there was any reason for it. It was just like, oh, you're 35 now. Your back should hurt. Like
I just turned friggin' 25, and I spent, like, yesterday just apoplectic because my back was killing me, and I'm just sitting here like, oh my gosh. And I mean, I just wrote a piece for Geeks Under Grace about relationships, and I started out with the existential crisis of turning 25 is realizing you're officially as old as Orson Welles was when he made Citizen Kane.
yeah.
So I'm at my golden birthday. I am officially, if I don't produce something in my life worth value, I'm going to die alone. And so
Yeah, it's a lot like that facing down 40. Like you'll see a lot of like these financial magazines that say like every millionaire has made their fortune at age 39, and you're like, oh, that's only a few years away. And my garbage is still like all over my yard. Like like there's an open case of PBR in my kitchen. Like I can't make $1 million. What are you talking about?
I need to convert to one of those religions where having money is a sin. Then I can just write it off in the afterlife.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, just get rid of all of it. Just like
Don't you
But
know
yeah.
having any money at all is a
I do
sin?
think-
I'm just living in the gutter and I'm going to heaven.
There we go. We're giving it all away.
Yeah. I guess that's as comfortable a transition as I'm going to get to talk about Catholic Yenta at the moment, but
Yeah,
so how did this
I think going into it with lower your expectations is a great.
Oh my gosh.
But go ahead. Sorry.
So how did this months-long project come into being then? Because I imagine at the time we're recording this now, it's probably going to be about 2 weeks until this comes out. So I imagine you're probably within range of a lot of this kind of starting to come into fruition for a lot of it. But how did this all kind of happen?
So it was very strange. Ultimately, what happened with Catholic Yenta was a friend of mine in Washington, D.C., was going to a Catholic speed dating event, and the church where she was going had to offer substantial discounts and like free things to men because the only people who had signed up for this were women. And she was complaining about how there were no Catholic men in her area, and this, religious dating was just terrible. And jokingly, I reached out and said, I have at least 3 couples, probably more. I haven't followed up on a lot of people, but I have these friends of mine that I've put together. And if you want me to do that for you, then I would be happy to do it. You just have to send me this and this information over a direct message. And I'd be happy to do it for anybody. And by the end of a 48-hour period following that single stupid tweet, I had about 1,000 people who had either DM'd me or emailed me. And I actually had to get to the point where I put together a Google Doc, which is still functional right now. I'm working with HubSpot to kind of improve that, but we put together a Google Doc and people put in their information, and I'm slowly working through it and trying to get everybody processed. But I now have, close to 2,500 people who have asked me to get them a marriage, basically. And it's been crazy because this is something that I never anticipated doing. It's just something I think is fun. Like, I've done it for my friends, and people were like, I really need this, and I really need it now.
Well, there you go. I know I'm not Catholic myself. I'm Protestant, but I've in my experience talking with friends of mine who's Catholic, it seems that there are a lot of people in our relative age group that kind of struggle with that initial step of meeting people within the church.
Yeah.
I mean, and especially people who are very serious in their faith. Like, I'm sure you can find lapsed Catholics for a dime a dozen who just kind of want to marry randomly. But if you want to meet someone who's actually, like, serious in the church and who actually wants to take their faith seriously and live it out, I can imagine that's very hard for a lot of Catholics.
Yeah, and I think it was just in general too, is I had a lot of people reach out and said, do you do this for Protestants? Do you do just, people who don't feel one way or the other? And I think a lot of it was just people getting tired of Tinder and these apps that just kind of, facilitate hookups, basically. A lot of people were kind of like, oh, this woman has a successful marriage and a family, and she must be doing something correctly. So this is what I want. And so they signed up with me, and it's been a pretty crazy thing. I do these interviews. So anyone who signs up with me to do this, I call them up and we talk for 15 minutes, 30 minutes, and I get to know them. And a lot of it is just, I think people feel really lonely, and they feel really like the dating culture has kind of left them behind. And it's fascinating. I don't know if it even has to do with people being Catholic or not. It's just, they feel so isolated. And it's just a really interesting dynamic that I've found. People are just really wanting this particular thing.
So what is the process of actually like pulling this together been like? Like, how are you approaching that?
So this has been a huge undertaking, and obviously I already have a day job,
Yeah.
And I have 2 7-month-old babies. So I've been approaching it sort of piecemeal. It's very non-technological. Like, every time somebody puts something into the website, I then take their information, I put it on an index card, and the index card gets filed in this index card box, and then I have to call them and get a little bit more information, and then I go from there. So far I've had a couple dozen people go out on dates, and we're getting a little bit faster as time goes on. I'm processing people a little bit faster. I'm doing the interviews a little bit faster. But so far, it's been a real chore to get everything together, and it's taking quite a long time. But part of the whole enterprise is also putting together a plan and going to people who are interested parties to see if they'll fund something, so I can dedicate just a little bit more of my time to this. But yeah, it's all very old-fashioned, and I feel like I should be wearing a babushka and like, carrying baguettes and things like that. Like, it's all very, very old-fashioned, and like my index card system is really, really quite comical, but it does work. It helps me see everybody, and if you put your information in there, then I can get a visual on where you are and what your interests are, and what age you are and how dedicated you are to your Catholic faith, and then sort of match people up based on all of those qualifications. So it's it's fascinating. I think from an outside perspective, I look crazy, like in A Beautiful Mind, where he's just putting all of these cards on a board and connecting them all with red string. Like, it gets pretty nuts sometimes, but it seems effective. It seems effective. So if it's working, then I'm good with it.
Well, that's the important thing. I mean, obviously, I don't want to ask like information on people who've submitted, but how have the responses on that been? Have you been? Did you get a lot of crazy people like signing up? Was it like majority women, majority men?
Everyone seems pretty normal. I will say that everybody that I've run into, the vast majority are normal. There's crazies, most definitely. There's like a lot of people where you're like, whoa, no. But the vast majority of people just seem very normal. They're just everyday adults and who are kind of tired of the Bumbles and Tinders and all of these other things. Even Catholic Match, I think people get like in eHarmony. Those are supposed to be sort of more religious oriented, but people kind of get sick of those. So it's mostly normal people. It's about half men and half women, which I was surprised about. I thought I was going to get way more women than men, but it's about 50-50. And these people seem like everyday, ordinary people. I wish that I could be like, oh, there's this one thing that sticks out about everybody who's used my service, but more than anything else, like, they just don't like loud chewers. Like, these very, very normal things. But a lot of them, I think, have a hard time approaching other people in these situations. So they might go to mass, and they might go to church and see somebody that they like, but they don't really know how to approach that person. A lot of it is very awkward. Social media makes things really strange, and when you're text messaging people, it's sometimes really hard to get your point across effectively. And so what a matchmaker does is then facilitate these meetups and these meetings without you really having to do that initial step of overcoming fear and talking to somebody. I do that step for you. So I think that's what people are really drawn to, is you don't have to have that awkward conversation. You don't have to deal with the rejection right away. It's all, if they reject anybody, they reject me. And I'm not bothered by it. I don't care. I'm already married. So I think that's part of the reason people, I think, come to this.
That's really wonderful to hear, because I've worked on and participated in a couple of random like matchmaking services online, just at a kind of makeshift things or people are experimenting with. And the two things that almost universally seem to happen are you get crazies and trolls, or the ratio becomes like 9-to-1 men to female. So, or it just becomes completely lopsided, where you either have to you have to play like babysitter the entire experiment, or it just the whole premise falls apart because you can't get any sort of evenness in it. So that's really wonderful to hear that you're getting a decent spread of people.
I think part of it is we do it nationwide, or I do it nationwide. So each individual city, it might be different. So Chicago, I kind of have a dearth of male applicants, whereas in Washington, D.C., I have a dearth of female applicants. But the whole process of matchmaking is a commitment to it being long-term. So what we hope is that people stay in the program long enough that eventually we start to find people. Because the difference between matchmaking and these kind of dating apps is that, and I try to tell people, is that you can't expect immediate results. What I'm looking for more is quality over quantity. And if you go on Tinder, you go on Bumble, you might go on 10 dates, and maybe one of those dates will result in a second date. And of the second dates that you have, perhaps it might take 6 months or a year to find somebody that you have a long-term relationship with. What I'm looking for is more along the lines of, who can you have a long-term relationship with? Who can I see you building a life with, marrying maybe? It's more oriented towards quality. So I kind of encourage people, even if, I'm telling you, or I'm speaking with you in your interview and I'm telling you, well, 15% of the applicants are female in your particular city, so the chances are lower. That is supposed to go on for an extended period of time. And not to mention that because we're Catholic, we also count that what is guiding this, the hand of God is involved in this too. And so I can't tell you that you're not going to find your perfect match, because I may have both of you directed towards me and I'm supposed to bring you together. So that's kind of what I tell people, is you got to stick with it and you got to stay in the program, because the longer you stay in the program, the more likely that there'll be a match. And so it's kind of a strange dynamic, like telling people, well, yeah, you do have to stay with me for a year. You're going to get to know me really well, and I'm going to give you feedback when you get back from your dates and things like that. But the longer you stay with me, the higher your chance of success, basically.
That's kind of an anathema to the millennial mind, I would suspect a little bit, but just like, oh, if you wait, this could work out really well for you. But what has it been like for the non-Catholic members of the Catholic Yenta? Have you had any luck with them at all?
So far, I've told people if they're not Catholic, they're signing up with me. I can't guarantee results. It's Catholic related.
Well, there you go.
And I've had Protestants approach. Yeah, I've had Protestants approach me like, I don't know, but I can't tell you it's never going to work. I mean, I have Catholics who are all over the board. So when I say Catholic, I don't necessarily mean, goes to mass every week, does this, does that. They're Catholic by origin, or they're Catholic because their family's Catholic, or they're Catholic because they went to Catholic school. So that's one of the questions that we ask is, okay, you're Catholic, but what can we do for you? And there are certainly people in our program who run the gamut from one end to the other, and liberals and conservatives, and mass every week and mass on Christmas. So it helps me to actually narrow down the list of people if I know exactly where you fall on that spectrum. So all is not lost. If this is, this is something you want to do, all is not lost. I can help. I just can't tell you. Like I said, it's a millennial thing to want instantaneous results. But the longer you stick with the program, the better your chances are of finding something.
I remember when I was talking to you about it a while back. You said you had other friends that you were gonna help do like non-Catholic versions of Catholic Yenta. Did that ever end up materializing at all? Where you were gonna like recommend people do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's in process. So there's a lot of Jewish matchmakers. That market is saturated. But I do have a very good friend who is good at this, and I trust with people that I might send her way. But there are other people who kind of want to learn the ropes and then take it elsewhere. So that is something that's in progress. I am learning as I go. I don't realize what I have to teach, but apparently I do have something to teach. And people are taking that in other areas. So, my hope is that I can both provide this service and then start to teach people about relationships sort of on the other end too.
Do you foresee this like growing into something? Like, are you gonna try to like turn this into like an app or something?
I have no idea.
Would you even want to like if someone like approached you and is like, do you want to like become like an official matchmaking service? Would you do that?
So I feel like my husband asked me a couple days ago if I was going to be the Dr. Ruth of Catholics, and I was like, wait, what? I don't know if I want to get involved in people's lives at that level.
Make a commitment on this recording. I'll have it forever that way. Right. Proof for the internet.
Yeah, this is forever. So what I say is like, I didn't anticipate doing this. It certainly came out of the blue. So the fact that it's continued to develop over the period of several months, and now we're going into the spring, and I'll probably be doing a lot more work on this into the spring and the summer. So, I just sort of let this go where it takes me, because it's been quite the ride so far.
Well, there you go. I'm glad it's working out as it is. I mean, I'm curious to see how this is ultimately gonna go down over time, because obviously this is gonna be it's gonna take a while for a lot of this to come into fruition. I mean, you said you've gotten some success out of it, though.
And I'm starting with. Yeah, we've had a couple dozen dates. We've had about a 50% success rate, or 50. I define success as moved on to a second date. So, of the 24 or so, we've had some success. But I've only had time to do 2 dates really. I've been busy. I can't follow up with everybody all the time. They're supposed to keep me in the loop, and some people do, and some people don't. But right now my focus is on getting these 2,500 people all in my system and processing, and then we'll start to see if we can expand it beyond that so that we can get a few more people into the system. So far it's been successful, and I'm hoping that it continues to go this direction, because I'd love to see some of the clients that I've worked with so far end up happily ever after. I like, marriage is marriage, but happily ever after is pretty good.
I was gonna say that there's always the possibility that someone could like go off and like have like an immediate religious marriage. Like, you meet those people that are like fresh out of college and they're both religious and they both want to get married, so they're together, and then like a month later they're married. But I mean, obviously that probably wouldn't be the best idea, but I've seen it happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've seen it happen. And, sometimes it's, like, amazing. But, I tell people my husband and I dated for, like, 6 years before we got married. And now we've been married for almost 10 years. And it's one of those, like, sometimes longer is better for some people. Sometimes shorter is better for some people. I can't anticipate. If, like, you get this strike the first time you go on a date and you're like, let's get on a plane to Vegas and get married by Elvis tonight. Hey, you do what you got to do. It's not a Catholic wedding, but we'll talk about that when you get back. But there's always that possibility.
I mean, I know so many. For whatever reason, I just saw this consistent experience of like Protestant girls in college, where they all go off to their Bible college, and by their senior year they're already married and working on their first kid. So I don't know if you've ever seen that too, where it's like religious people just move very, very quickly. When a lot of them move very, very quickly when they're determined, especially when they have their life planned out.
Yeah, I do see two types of people there. Yeah, I see people who have their life planned out and they're able to do this. They go to college, they get their MRS, they have, 4 kids by the time their 10-year reunion rolls around. And that's fine. I mean, people do that. That's amazing. Like, it didn't happen to me, but I think good job to them.
You're halfway there.
But then I also see a lot of these left behinders, which I think is mostly people who are religious. They think they're going to go to a religious school, meet the person of their dreams, start a family, have kids right out of college. And that works out for some of them, but then there's a lot of people who get left behind. And so that left behind group then struggles to find people. And that's actually what prompted Catholic Yenta to begin with, is a lot of these women that I was talking to in Washington, D.C. were saying, I have a career, I've exited college, didn't quite work out with my college boyfriend. Now all of the good guys married girls in college. And now here I am, pushing 30. I'm doing really well in my career, but I want something more. And they're having a hard time finding guys. So that was initially what started it. What ended up happening was that I started to find men who were having the same issues. But yeah, there's sort of this two schools of thought. Some people can find that person and get started right away, and then other people just kind of like meander. They have vocations and things that are more important to them, which is great, but then they find themselves wanting something a little bit down the road. So I'm learning so much. I missed this whole my husband asked me out on MySpace, which is like how long we've been dating. So I missed this whole internet dating thing. I was like, I still have your MySpace message, not even Facebook. He put me on Facebook because finally I had a .edu address when Facebook first started.
Oh my gosh.
So I missed out on this whole thing. I'm relearning how to date now.
Wow. I mean, you're maybe not even really that, because you're kind of like bringing something more old-fashioned back into the modern dating scene, really, honestly.
bringing it back. Maybe I can bring MySpace back too. like glitter backgrounds.
Hey.
It's very emo. I'm sure that I could just restart it all.
I've said this a dozen times now. The future is retro minimalism, which means all the old stuff is gonna come back with a vengeance.
It's new again. Learn how to code HTML.
MySpace is gonna come back. Everyone's gonna go back to flip phones. It's gonna be a thing. But yeah.
AOL Instant Messenger. Dang, I miss it.
Well, everyone has their limits, so I guess for like an advice section, like what would you recommend to guys my age who are struggling if they're having trouble meeting people? Because I know a lot of people my age that are having trouble kind of breaking into the dating scene. Do you have any like life advice for them coming from your perspective, other than just trying to reach out and try alternative matchmaking methods?
I'm trying to think, like, my husband won me over with like an anonymous MySpace profile, so maybe don't do that. But I think having courage and just being brave and bold, and that sounds so weird. I know that it's like, oh, that's like a movie line. Be brave, be bold, be yourself. But that's something that I generally tell people is don't lie to people from the get-go. Whoever you are, that's the best thing. The person, you've got to be who you are. And so don't try to change yourself. Don't try to lie to people that you're dating. Don't make things up about yourself. Just have honesty about everything about you, because it's amazing. You are amazing. And I know that that's written on all sorts of like millennial pink journals everywhere, and it doesn't even mean anything anymore. But have confidence in yourself and be open to being disappointed. Be open to having a little bit of heartbreak. It's all going to happen. That's just a natural part of life. But the more you try, the more you put yourself out there, the better it's going to be. And I also, people can also talk to me personally. That's part of the Catholic Yenta thing, is not just the dating, but also I'm here to answer questions. I'm here to help people figure out how to ask people out. That's all part of what I do. So I wish that I had some specific advice that this is the thing that's going to help you go out and get that girl, but just do it. Just do it. If she says no, the worst that can happen is she says no. Go on and do it again. And it sucks. And I know it sucks, but it's going to work at some point. And I can help you get better. I can help you communicate better. I can help, there's basic things I say not to do. Like, please don't send photos of your private areas to women without asking them first. Don't write them Civil War length letters. Just, sidle up to them and say, hey.
Well, speaking for
I have so many problems I deal with on a daily basis.
No, I mean, I get it. I'm thinking I might need to start doing a lot of this stuff for like my Geeks Under Grace ministry, just kind of talking about millennial relationships. But like, speaking for myself as a millennial guy, I and a lot of guys my age, a lot of people get caught in like the confidence issue, where they tell you, confidence is the number one thing that's important. And a lot of guys my age, me included up until recently, are not confident about who they are or what their abilities are. They don't know what they're capable of. So they go into things nervous and they get anxious and uptight. Mm-hmm. So they start putting on like a confident front, and women can smell that a mile away. And so it just becomes this like self-perpetuating
that's why I
anxiety
say,
trap.
Like, you have to be yourself. Yeah, you have to be yourself. You start to build this vision of yourself around you, like who you want to be. And I would always have this problem going out on dates. I would like try to explain to people who I was, but in this way that it was this person I wanted to be. Like, I wanted them to like me. And so I would work really hard to make them like me. But that doesn't quite work, because eventually, it might not be the second date. It might not be the sixth date. It might not be a year down the road, but that house of cards sort of falls down around you. And so that confidence, that's really the key thing. That's the most difficult part of this, but it's also the most crucial part. So women respond not to what you look like. I know people are always really concerned about how they look and whether women are going to be attracted to how they look. I have a very different type. So when I would go out, I wasn't attracted to like these super statuesque guys who looked like they'd be surfing all day. So you don't know what women are really into. So you just kind of have to wing it. You kind of have to be like, you know what? I am who I am. This is great. Take your best thing that you did all day. You know, like, oh, I got this high score in the video game, or I accomplished this thing at work, or and remember that feeling that you had when you did that, and that's who you are, and you take that feeling with you when you're trying to do this dating thing. That's going to help you a lot, because it's going to make it feel less like you have to build this persona up around you. You're cool who you are. You're going to be great who you are. And the only way to get a lasting relationship is to be honest with the person that you're asking out. Otherwise, it's not going to be a lasting relationship.
Yeah, I mean, ironically, I've had more success talking with people the moment I stopped trying to like make myself look good than I did than at any time when I was trying to impress people. So I mean, a lot of guys my age obviously have that problem where they just get caught in that, but it's good. Mm-hmm. It's good to have that in mind, where you shouldn't try. You need to be yourself.
Yeah, just have that vision of yourself that, like, you know, that vision of yourself that on a moment that you're really proud of, and take that with you. Yeah, you know what? The worst that's going to happen, and I tell this to people, it's like, the worst that's going to happen is they're going to say no. And if you don't ask, they will have said no already. So you've set yourself up for failure. You've created your own failure. There's maybe a 5% chance of success, but that chance of success is only going to happen if you make that move. So, you know, obviously, if it doesn't work out for you, there's always Catholic Yenta, but, you know.
Well, that's the important thing. Okay, so obviously I don't want to waste any more of your time when you got the 2 kids. And do you want me to send all of my viewer over to Catholic Yenta, or do you want to like shout out anything else you do?
CatholicYenta.com is great. Find me on the DailyWire or on Twitter. I'm always around to chat. DMs are open.
And she's she's a very comprehensive World War II historian. I'll give her that too, because I think I found you when you did the Normandy invasion tweets last year. I think that was when I found.
That's right, because I do that every year.
Okay, I didn't know if that was like a one-time thing, but
I've gone quiet on the World War II front. No, I've kind of gone quiet on the World War II front because I'm deep working on my book, which is what the next project on the political and sort of military side.
I was gonna say you're mixing your references a little bit, but that's probably the wine. So.
yeah, it's a couple glasses in at this point, but.
Yeah, I really love that World War I movie, Paths of Glory, or World War II movie.
Paths of Glory.
Yes. Yeah. My favorite Vietnam movie is friggin' Johnny Got His Gun. Right.
Totally. But perfect.
Yeah. I'm a much better actual drunk than a fake one, but anyway.
then Skytrack, right?
I thank you for coming on. This was fun.
Of course.
Yeah, I might send you some of my recent ministry stuff just because I've been talking a lot about relationships in that. But maybe I'm sure there's some guys you can probably send out
awesome.
Too.
Yeah, I'd love to see it. I need it. Please send that to me.
I'm gonna do more because it seems to be going across pretty well.
Please.
But yeah.
You're great.
Keep breaking a leg on Catholic Yenta and have a good night.